Now this week we're going to be uncovering the secret behind why you can't get a mortgage. Now, if you've ever been turned down for a mortgage before and you're a bit puzzled as to why that would be, then this week's video is just for you, because that's what we're going to be drilling down and looking at. Sound interesting? Hey, stick around. Okay, so it's not very nice if you're ever turned down for a mortgage because you think, hey, what's wrong with me? Well, you might have an idea if you've got really bad credit or maybe no income or something like that. Now, you may well have heard me say this before, but mortgage underwriting is an exercise in risk mitigation. In other words, if you hunt around for the cheapest rates, which of course everybody wants, don't they? The reason they can offer the cheapest rates is because the lender has mitigated the most risk. Now, if you're new to my videos, my name's Kevin Wright, and I've been brokering property finance for over 20 years. Everything from a simple AST buy-to-let mortgage right up to multi-million-pound development loans and everything in between. And mostly in the spring and autumn times of the year, I'll run training and networking events in different parts of the country, usually focused around London, Leeds, Bristol and Birmingham. So hey, if you're not far away from any of those places, just keep looking out for when I might be doing some events. Now, enough of that, back to not being able to get a mortgage and why that might be. Now, it could be to do with you personally. There's something in your background that mortgage lenders don't like, or it could be about the property and you're okay, but it's the property that you're hoping to get a mortgage on, or it could be a bit of both. So let's examine both of those things. Now, personally, if you want cheap mortgage rates, and hey, they're not as cheap as they were a year ago, are they? But if you want the cheaper end of the mortgage rates as they are currently today, then you're going to need to be squeaky clean. And sometimes squeaky clean isn't enough. You've got to be super squeaky clean. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that you've got to tick every box. In other words, an income criteria and most certainly a credit history criteria. Now, the cheapest lenders, we already know they mitigate the most risk because they want to minimize their downside risk so they can go out cheaper and hit that area of the market. So they want the super squeaky clean borrowers. If you've missed even one payment on any credit agreement, be it a loan, gone into unauthorized overdraft, missed a credit card payment, late with a loan payment, just one thing, and it's a one strike and you're out situation. It's no go until you've been super squeaky clean again for usually a 3-year period. So zero tolerance there is what we're saying. Now, if you don't quite hit those levels of super squeaky cleanness, obviously you can still get a mortgage, just not at quite such a keen rate. And the less clean your credit is, the higher rates you're going to pay until you actually can't get any mortgages at all. Now, if mortgage lenders, underwriters are drilling down on you, they're equally drilling down on the property as well. And their one big focus is, what if you don't actually keep up paying this? What if you pay for, I don't know, a couple of years and then you decide for whatever reason you hit a rocky patch, or maybe you just decide to stop paying? Who knows? People do these things. And they have no alternative after several months but to repossess you and sell the property to get their capital back. Now, they've always got an eye on that from day one. And what they're looking at is, how tricky is this going to be to sell? And the trickier they think it's going to be to sell, that again factors into this risk mitigation. Let's give you an example.
Hey, have you subscribed yet? Click that subscribe button down there and that dingy belly thing so you don't miss any of my videos when they're released, which is every week. Great, thanks. I almost forgot, Instagram. Click that button too. Look, it's down there. Thanks.
High-rise blocks. Now, when I say high-rise blocks, I don't mean 21st century build quality high-rise blocks you see in many city centres now today, because there's no problem selling those really. Now, there's a general feeling amongst lenders that people prefer low-rise living, i.e. no more than 4 stories, than high-rise living. But it's 21st century build quality. There's no real issue with mortgage lenders on that. What they have got an issue with is mid to late 20th century build quality on high-rise blocks, especially if A, they used to be owned by the council or local authority, and B, they're made of concrete, which they often are, rather than brick built. Some of the pre-Second World War ones would be brick built, and some into the Victorian and even earlier would be brick built. But it's the concrete ones of the mid to late 20th century that caused lenders problems. There's a simple reason for that. It was never conceived when they were being constructed people could own them privately. They were constructed for public ownership, and there was never any hint, suspicion or clue that people were ever going to be allowed to buy them. It took a change in legislation for that to happen in the early 1980s. People could buy the property they rented. It's not unfair to say they were built on the cheap. Because the council was responsible for building them and housing people in them, then there was no need to overly drill down on build quality. It was just knock them up as cheap as you can, and as long as they fit for purpose, all's good in the world. Roll it on 50 to 60 years and the world doesn't look quite the same, does it? Now that's just one example, and there are plenty of others. But if lenders feel that they're going to struggle to sell a property if they have to repossess it from the borrower, pretty certainly they're going to take a sterner view about lending. And again, the lower the rate, the more properties and the more people they end up saying no to. Now, where's the angle in this, you might be thinking? And if you watch any of my other videos, or quite a lot of my other videos, the angle probably has something to do with bridging finance, because I'm a big advocate of it. Not in every situation, of course, but for the right deal. It gets you into deals where you'd need a big part of cash to do it otherwise. So it's a fantastic enabler in the right situation. Now, what's the angle here? Well, everything we're talking about you personally and your history and the property, bridges don't apply that criteria. They just look at the property and say, okay, it's got a problem now, and you fix it. Can you make it mortgageable? If you make it mortgageable, hey, we're interested in lending to you. Let's talk. Bridges aren't stupid. They don't lend irresponsibly. But what they do take is a more pragmatic view than mortgage lenders, and they're not as harsh with their risk mitigation. They're more liberal in their mindset, which is great news because they enable you to do deals. So mortgage lenders, underwriters, they're underwriting it for the long or medium term at least. So their focus is, hey, are you likely to be a good payer? Let's look at everything we can to give us as much confidence as possible that you're going to keep paying the mortgage month after month after month. Bridges, on the other hand, have no such concerns. Why? Because you're probably going to repay the loan either by A, refinancing onto a mortgage, or B, selling it and doing so in no more than 12 months. Because you want to keep a lid on the costs, it's probably going to be less than that if you can possibly make it so. Now, I often say repossession, which we've just been talking about, is the nuclear option. In other words, it's the worst case scenario for any borrowers to be repossessed. Now, bridges and mortgage lenders alike will resort to that nuclear option if they feel there's no other way to get their capital back. I mean, mortgage lenders have more flexibility. They can give you a payment holiday or a reduced payment period, let you catch up later by overpaying. Bridges can be tolerant, but maybe less tolerant and tolerant in different ways to mortgage lenders. But both, will press that red button if they see no other way of getting their money back. You might be surprised to learn that bridges generally are not as trigger happy as the reputation that belies them. And the one thing they look for if someone's going to overrun their term is communication before the end of the term. If you're upfront, open and transparent, they're much more likely to try and work with you to find a solution so you can either sell or refinance the property. What makes them twitchy is no communication. Doing the proverbial sticking your head in the sand doesn't really do you any favours with bridging lenders. So there we are. If you've been turned down for a mortgage, either yourself or a property, is probably down to an overzealous underwriter chasing a low rate, and you may have to pay a bit higher rate to get the deal that you want. So with that mysteries of underwriting and risk mitigation unraveled, I'm going to come back next week with another property finance video. I'll see you then.
If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30 I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.